just from the top up.
Yeah. Okay. So we should be live then. Yep, I see live on there. Awesome. Hello, everybody. If you're watching already, I'm just going to do a little bit of pre-show. So there's going to be a lot of silence as well, too, at some point, I'm sure. We'll be getting started pretty much at 9 p.m. Eastern, right on the dot, taking it right off the top. So Nick, I'm going to bring up the feed and just make sure I can see everything for you switching camera-wise.
Okay.
So, I can remember what that is now. There we go.
Am I allowed to ask questions on the pre-show?
Yeah, talk about anything you want, man.
Oh, cool. I wanted to ask Collin what it was like working for First. I know you were our FRC advocate for a while, so I want to know what that experience was like.
Yeah, I'll say it was at times the greatest job in the world, and at times incredibly challenging. You know, it's you go in thinking that you can change everything and, you know, make First perfect for every person, and you very much just have to focus on what your job is. So for a long time, my job was the kit of parts, and so like focus on the kit and just make sure that like the kit gets out the door and gets to teams every year, and that's a full-time job for two people. And so, you know, when I first started, I thought, you know, oh, I'm gonna be involved with making the Chairman's Award better and getting districts going more places and all these things, and then I start and it's just like, oh my God, the kit is so all-encompassing, and so.
Hey Nick, are you switching cameras at all right now, or are you just leaving it on me?
I just have it on you.
Okay, can you just switch a couple times just so I can see it?
Yeah. How is volume on everyone too, by the way? Volume on everyone for the broadcast, Tyler.
Oh yeah, I'll have to listen to that in just a minute. So.
Okay. Because I can adjust all you guys too. So.
And you know, it's at the end of the day, it's still a job, and management is going to make decisions that you don't agree with personally. And at least at my old job, there wasn't like a message board where everyone could go on and talk about how much those decisions suck. You know, and especially, you know, I have a lot of friends that are in First and things like that, and so, you know, they would just have to say, you know, we know that even if you agree with it or whatever, like, we're not bashing you. This is just, you know, this impacts a lot of people, and so it took some thick skin. But it was a lot of fun. I had a great time. I got to meet a lot of great people and be a part of game design, which was awesome. And travel all around to. I need to go back and count how many events I went to, but over the course of 4 years working there, it's probably at least 20 and maybe 25.
Wow. So. That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's a lot of event hopping.
Yeah, and I got to go to Israel one year in 2013 to help run that event, so that was a lot of fun. And
we missed each other by 1 year. I was in Israel the year before.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I went with 1662.
Okay.
Back in the day. I don't think they went in 2013 though. But
I feel like there was a U.S. team there when I was there.
Yeah, there was a team from L.A. that would go quite a few times, and then a team from, I think, Virginia that was there.
I know the pink team went 1 year as well, I believe.
I feel like this team was from L.A.
Yeah, there is an L.A. team, I'm pretty sure, that goes fairly regularly. But that is a fun event. The teams in Israel are a blast.
Oh, yeah, it's a 3-day party. So.
Yeah. I still see some of the guys at Champs from Israel, and they all still recognize me. It's pretty fun.
we actually had an Israeli team at IRI this year, and so I got to talk to the lead mentor. I remembered him, and I reminded him that I had been there and talked to him. So I don't know that he actually remembered me. I'm sure it was a much different experience for me being there. You know, for them, they're just trying to have their event run, whereas I'm like part vacation, part work, and
yeah, totally. Did you spend any days in Israel?
Yeah, I was actually there for a little over a week.
Nice.
Just because when you have to get there, make sure that everything got there safely, and then we like start field setup, and then like 4 o'clock Friday, we have to stop and wait, basically until Sunday morning. So we had like all day Friday to tool around and do stuff. So
that's cool. That's cool.
Yeah, it was a good time.
We
I want to
had
go
a
back. I want
student
to take my wife. Sorry, go ahead, Tyler.
Yeah. No, that's all right. We just kind of interesting story. We our team got contacted. I know a bunch of our teams did too about this one student and his dad. And I don't remember what team is off the top of my head. It was like 2230 or something like that. And he took he's a team from Israel, and he came to the States and he took his kid and visited like 15 or 20 first teams, including ours.
Yeah,
all around the States.
He came down and saw 234 as well.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I think he mentioned that. Yeah, they were delightful. They were awesome.
It was like it was a team that just did like a U.S. tour of robotics teams.
No, it was just one of the mentors and his kid who just graduated.
Yeah, that was his like graduation gift. Was he wanted to go and see like as many U.S. FRC teams as he could.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Well, he's been to more states than I have, I think. So
yeah,
I'm very very jealous.
Oh, that's great. That's super.
Yeah. Hey, Mike, I got to tell you, since we haven't really had much time to talk post-championship stuff.
Yeah.
Maybe just a funny thing. So, just in the semifinals, just our team, and I remember talking to a few people about this. You guys were, I think, at some point, were third or fourth in the rankings.
We were dead last, I think, until the last two matches.
Yeah, and man, like the whole time, I just keep thinking, like, please don't let that alliance jump up. Please don't let them jump up. Like, they're the only ones I'm really like. I mean, you're worried about everybody, but you guys, I'm like, oh god, like they can beat us at cam battles. And it's funny, and in retrospect, we're like, oh man, maybe that last match we should have just went for 2 cans or something like that. But yeah, and obviously it sucked with our autonomous mode not working, but. Yeah, you guys were the one alliance, man. We're just like, oh, please, we got a 1 in 3 chance. Don't let it be them.
I think we were more excited to make it out of the semis than we were to get into or to win the champs, because we just did not expect to make it out of the semifinals. I mean, we were so far down after the first 2 rounds, or I guess the first 2 matches, and then we start kind of crawling back a little bit, but we were still dead last after 4 matches, and then those last 2 matches were just insane. Oh my gosh, we flipped out. It was crazy.
Oh, it was. I mean, you guys performed amazingly, and you're extremely consistent, and that was all about this year's game, right? It was consistency at a high level.
Yeah, I mean, we were the ones who choked in the first semifinal. We got surgical tubing from our can grabbers wrapped around our rear wheel, and so our driver was like chewing through 3 bands of surgical tubing as he was driving the whole match, and we still put up 2 stacks, but that was.
Was that the one, too, that 118 got the can stuck on them as well?
That might have been the same match. I haven't gone back and watched all of them in a while.
I don't know, because I know that, I think that was the one that we played on the other side of you guys, but I don't quite remember.
Yeah. So I think you're right. I think that was the same match, because a lot of stuff went wrong, and we put up our lowest score the whole tournament in that first semifinal match on Einstein. Not a good feeling, but I guess, I mean, in this game, at least the way it was played at for the season, the semis were the time to mess up. I mean, if you had to mess up
with
in
the
any
3 matches, absolutely,
it was going to be in a semifinal match, because
and that's what happened. The Poofs and and was it 971 was their partner or whatever. I mean,
973,
you screw up in the quarters, you're just done.
Oh, that was such a bummer. I couldn't believe that. That was too bad. But their students were awesome. Like right when they were out and I heard about it, like three of both their team's kids were over helping us out, like get set up and do testing and stuff like that in between our divisions and Einstein. So it was pretty cool. Pretty cool having those kids back in this. It was a good time. Yeah.
To answer your guys' question before, it was 1662 Raptor Force Engineering out of Lodi, California. That goes to
Lodi, California. Yeah.
It's that Wisconsin accent.
Lodi. Yeah, that's what. So I lived there for like a year and a half and mentored 1662 while I was there.
Cool.
And like would drive up to 1678 every Sunday because the team didn't build on Sunday, so I would take that day to build over in Davis. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
What is your guys? What is your hour commitment typically during the build season?
We meet 4 days a week, for 1678, and it's like 6:30 to 9 on Wednesdays and Thursdays, and then we do 9 to 5 on Saturdays, Sundays. So yeah, this year I'll be taking Sundays off, and then our like lead mentor who started the team, he'll be taking Saturdays off. So the two of us will like swap back and forth so that we can take a weekend day off each.
Yeah, that's a good balance.
It'll be a nice change of pace. Slash, it was kind of having a wife changes things too.
Yeah. Congratulations. I'm gonna infer your honeymoon went really well.
Yeah, it was great. We had a really relaxing time. I mean, I haven't had a real vacation since I started my new job because all my vacation days go to first robotics tournaments. So actually having like a 5 days off, a whole week vacation that wasn't around crazy robotics events was a nice change of pace for sure.
Where did you guys go?
We went to Bend, Oregon. Bend's got a lot of great like hiking. We went paddleboarding on some of the lakes up there. Did some bike rides. We're both like big into cycling, so we did some rides up there. And then they have lots of good beer, and we are both big beer fans.
But now you're talking my language.
Yeah, so they have like Deschutes, one of like I think the 6th or 7th largest craft breweries up into Bend, Oregon, and they have like another 15 or 16 craft breweries up there. So we were there for 7 days, and I think we hit 7 different breweries.
Oh, that's
7 days.
fantastic.
So, yeah, it was a lot of fun. It was a good time. But yeah,
that's it. For outside people, that's one of the probably few things people think about when they come to Wisconsin are doing brewery tours, and we got plenty of them too. So
yeah,
I love doing brewery tours.
They're fun, man. They're a lot of fun. It's fun to see how it's done, and yeah, it's pretty cool. And people like, I feel like people that work at breweries are just really cool people in general. Every
probably because they get free beer half the time. I'd be pretty cool about it too.
Yeah, there's a guy I used to know through Indiana First who's like the lead brewer at a microbrewery here in Indy. So I've been to it, but he hasn't been working while I've gone. So
got it. That's awesome.
All right.
5 minutes till show start, by the way, guys.
Yay! I know.
What do you do now?
What's that?
Sorry. What do you do now after you stop working for First?
I'm a sales engineer for an industrial automation design and manufacturing company.
Okay.
So we have a parent company that's like an integrator, so they sell conveyor and racking and the kind of things you can. They're an integrator, so you pick it out of a catalog and then they put it all together. Our division does the stuff that you can't buy out of a catalog. So
got it.
Everything from we need conveyor that's a little bigger or that handles a super heavy load to like we built an assembly platform that Rolls-Royce uses to put together the lift fan for the Joint Strike Fighter. So they've done some pretty cool stuff. I started there in January, so it's been fun.
Got it.
And it's nice because they got about, I think we have 50,000 square feet of manufacturing space, so we do all our manufacturing in-house, and
nice.
So it's been a nice change.
You're a sales engineer for a division of a company that doesn't have a catalog?
They have a catalog. I don't sell that catalog.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
What do you sell then?
What's that?
What do you sell then? How do customers come to you then? And if your division's more internal.
So yeah, I do a lot of inside sales. So we have sales offices all over the country. That we have. I think our one in California is in Pomona.
Okay.
And so they go out and build relationships with customers on site, and then when they see an application that fits us, they bring it to us, and it's my job to concept up a solution and price it out, and then try and help them sell that solution to their customer.
Got it.
So I kind of say it's like I'm on a first team that's playing like 8 games at a time.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Because it's very much just like, here's a project, here's how are we going to solve it, and then if we win the order, then we get to build it. So.
Yeah, and you got to know what your company has, right, so that you can try to integrate as many of those technologies you have into this solution for the customer. Then that's cool.
It's so funny too because there's so many people that work there that it's just like FRC, where it's like, oh, I have this this customer wants us to do this. And they're like, okay, I remember like back in 2009 we did a similar thing for Subaru, so see if you can find that job. And so it's just like being on an FRC team, where as soon as the experienced people see the game, they're just like, okay, these are the 4 games we need to go look at.
Yeah. That's cool. That's awesome. Very cool.
ETA of 2 minutes.
All right.
4 seconds and a half micron.
Yes.
Oh wait, that's not even time.
42 parsecs.
Yay. Wait.
Or are we doing furlongs per fortnight now?
I don't even understand what you're talking about now.
Perfect.
Sweet it is. And we can start in just like a minute or two. We don't need to. We can start a minute early. I'm sure it'll be fine. So.
Up to 13 viewers.
Yeah. That was weird. I mean, so the first show that we ran, we had, I think, peak like live was around 300 or so, plus 550 watching on YouTube afterwards. So we'll see how that works out here. I'm curious to see.
On Facebook.
Yeah.
Here we go.
I'm curious just to see kind of where it ends up, especially kind of off season. But I think once we get the iTunes thing going too, we can actually link people. I think that will drive traffic a little bit, and the more we do it, the more people will hear about it.
Yeah.
Ba-ba-bum.
Right.
All right, is everybody ready?
All good to go.
All right, give me just a moment, and we'll get going. Now that I've stretched. All right. And, Mike, since you're around here, the audio to you for any of the sound that pumps through might be a little bit loud.
Okay.
So just a heads up. When I tested before, it sounded fine in the audience. But, Nick, if for some reason that is a little bit loud, just tune me down a little bit if the chat room complains.
All right.
All right, ready? 3, 2. Coming up on First Updates Now, Collin Fultz is here from Indiana First, along with Mike Corsetto from World Champion Team 1678 Citrus Circuits to talk about some of the latest headlines coming out of the First community. We'll discuss Chezy Champs, which regionals our guests are most excited for, and more, all coming up on First Updates Now. Welcome, everybody, to First Updates Now, where we're here to talk about some of the biggest news and headlines impacting those of you in the First Box community. Joining me today is the illustrious man from Indiana First, part of the IRI Planning Committee and host of IRI Live this year. Welcome, Collin Fultz. Collin, thanks for joining us today. How's it going?
I'm great, Tyler. How are you?
Fantastic. Excited to be here. And before we get started, do you mind telling the audience a little bit about your background in First?
Absolutely. So I got my start in First in 2002 as a student on Team 234, Cyber Blue from Indianapolis. From there I went to Purdue for a mechanical engineering degree and started volunteering at the first Purdue Regional in 2005. After I graduated, I went back and mentored Team 234 for a couple of years until I moved to New Hampshire to actually work at First headquarters as the kit of parts engineer and then as the FRC team advocate. While working at First, I was lucky enough to be a member of the game design process for the 2011 through 2015 games. Now I'm back in Indy working as a mechanical engineer for an industrial automation company, and I volunteer with Indiana First.
So, Collin, we always hear about the game is designed 2 to 3 years out, so you know what's going on for 2016, right?
I do not know where that rumor got started. I do not know what the 2016 game is. The game is not designed 2 or 3 years in advance. I have no idea what we're in for next year.
Alrighty, we'll keep that in mind as we get your comments moving forward. Also joining us, we have Mike Corsetto from the World Champion Team at 1678 Citrus Circuits. Welcome, Mike. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, Tyler.
Excellent. Do you mind telling the audience a little about what you do both in and out of first?
Sure. So this is going to be my 13th year in FRC. I started mentoring Team 1678 back in 2008. And I've mentored a couple other FRC teams here and there, but I'm currently living in Davis, mentoring Team 1678. I'm the lead technical mentor, so I kind of oversee primarily all the robot-related and technical operations on 1678. In my professional life, I'm a mechanical engineer working at DMG Mori, one of the largest industrial machine companies, designing horizontal machining centers, essentially horizontal mills. And then I actually, in my personal life, just got married 3 weeks ago, which is pretty exciting. So
congratulations!
Thank you. Lots of fun stuff happening in my life. But yeah, that's kind of a basic lowdown.
Awesome. Well, thank you both for joining us today. We're going to change it up a little bit from our last show and see how you guys like that moving forward. So with that said, we're going to start with our headlines in the first community. And Collin, we got a lot to cover. Do you mind reading a couple with me as well?
Yeah, that sounds great.
All right, let's take a look at our headlines. Our top headline today, Frank Answers Fridays is back, where our FRC director tackles tough questions asked by the FRC community. One of them was John Stratus, a mentor from Team 2177, the Robettes. He has a tough question about championship slot allocation, pointing out that his state sends an underrepresented amount of teams to championships, meaning that other states are receiving a higher percentage of slots. So, Mike, I'll throw this out to you first. You know, the district model that some of the other states has, and Collin can probably chime in with that too, being from a district, is a little bit more controlled with the amount of teams that go on to championships. But for non-district states, is there a better way to control how many teams advance to each state while still allowing teams to go to any regional that they want to go to?
That's a good question, and I mean it's obviously a complicated question, and I think FIRST is kind of held off on doing anything about it up until now because there's a lot of variables that go with it, right? FIRST has kind of had its cookie cutter, 6 teams qualified at every regional since the beginning of time, and now districts came into play. It really mixed a lot of things up, but it's working well on the district level to allocate a proper amount of slots for each team, but that obviously hasn't trickled over to the regional system yet. And you know, in California, we kind of feel the hurt a little bit. We're not as underrepresented as John Stratus and the rest of Minnesota up there. They are severely underrepresented. But I mean, the reality of it is it's hard to really come up with. I saw a lot of different proposals on that thread. They range from maybe plausible to very wacky and probably never going to happen. And so I just think it's a hard problem to solve. I honestly think if regions want to be better represented at championships, they move away from the mega regional system. And I think that's the intermediate step to getting to a district environment in a region is moving away from these 45, 50, 60 plus team events and moving into the smaller 38 to 42 team regionals at smaller facilities that are more sustainable, and working towards that sort of environment as a middle step to districts. And if regions started doing that, if they started making some hard cuts on these venues, like LA costing almost $20,000 or $200,000 a year to run, I mean, there's really expensive regionals where Michigan can run almost all their districts for the same cost that California is paying for one regional event, and all that's coming from sponsor money, not from FIRST or from your registration fees. So I think if regions want to see better representation at championships, they're going to do a better service for their teams in the region by holding smaller events of around 40 teams. It's a little bit harder on the volunteer, but if you start whittling down the size of your events, I think that's the way to see better representation by these underrepresented districts or underrepresented regions in the country. Yeah,
and you're actually, Mike, that's a great point. You're seeing that in the Ontario area right now, they've got a lot of small events in the 30 to 40 range. For me, I think this is something that is going to change in the next couple of years. I think there will be some kind of move to the district points system to help fill waitlist slots. I think there will still be the automatic bids from championship or from regionals to the championship, and then once the two championships happen, I think those waitlist slots will be allocated based on points. And I think if you look back at what Frank and others in the first leadership said around the two championships, they do think that it's important that all teams have at least an opportunity to go every 4 years. So I wouldn't be surprised if there was some kind of time since last attended championship that factors into that point system as well. So maybe not the exact district point system, but something similar that maybe takes into account some other factors.
One of the things maybe to follow up from my end, from my team who does go to Minnesota for at least one of our regionals typically a year, and we're from Wisconsin, that means, my team did potentially take one of those spots from a Minnesota team and attending, and I think part of that is and Mike, I think you made a great point of looking at having smaller regional team numbers, because I think the Minnesota ones we go to, those are at least 60-plus teams for both of those, and that's a really, really tough thing when you're in, and I'm going to use Minnesota for example, when you have 200 teams, if you want to run as many either districts or regionals to get that size, that's a really tough workload both on the staff that's in Minnesota and as well to the volunteer base as well. But I think I like your idea of whittling down little by little and just trying to build out as much as you can.
Yeah, I think teams got to realize that they're really shooting themselves in the foot from a sustainability standpoint, trying to put on these 60-plus team events every year. It's not doesn't make sense from a cost perspective a lot of times with these venues, but more so from a volunteer perspective. And even if you're going down from 60 team events to 40 team events, it's not the staggering jump from 60 team events to districts 40 team events, because then you got to guarantee 2 plays for every one of those teams. If you just went down to 40 team events and a regional format, you're only adding on a 33% or 50% more events to sustain the same amount of teams for one play at least. I think it's the logical middle step, and really California is almost there. We have a couple of large events, but a lot of our events are floating in the 40 to 48 range, especially some of the newer events that are starting in high schools and community colleges. But I think Minnesota, and Collin brought up a good point, Ontario too. I mean, they had an event that was so small they couldn't invite. The team was limited by how many people that could come and watch, because there just wasn't enough space to watch at the event. I mean, so they're heading towards that way, and they're spreading out their event load a lot, and they got a ton of regionals in a small area, which is great for them. I think a place like Minnesota, who's really seeing the crunch right now, they need to reevaluate their direction and start heading in the smaller event route, because it's really the only way they're going to get more plays in a logical sense until they get to districts. So, and I think it's a decent middle step.
Yep, and the leadership in Minnesota is fantastic. I've had the opportunity of being at a couple of events there, and I've got confidence that they'll figure it out.
Yeah.
So speaking of the district model, there's another update from a first blog from FRC District Manager Miriam Samiro. She posted and said that 2016 inter-district play is back and will continue much in the same manner as 2015. Now this means that those who are interested in districts can continue to play both at other districts and at the traditional regional that have open slots. Sorry, that's for teams that are in districts. Teams there are not able to accumulate district points at outside district events or eligible for culture-changing awards like Chairman's, Engineering Inspiration, or Rookie All-Star. Now, Mike, we'll start with you, and the question really applies to both you and Tyler. As a team who is in a regional area, so you are locked out of playing certain areas, how does that impact, how your team feels going into the season?
Well, I mean, I would much rather prefer we're on districts, right? I mean, there's so many factors that go into it. But obviously, we look at, we've been jealous of Michigan since, things started, and seeing how many plays they get, and we try to do the same. We're very fortunate to have a strong sponsor at the university that pays for our registration fee, regardless of how many events we go to. So it's really not, besides the travel cost, it's not a cost for us to go to 3 regional events every year. And so that's what we do, because we try to emulate the experience that these teams that are on the district system are getting. I think when you look at it from like a logical, like what are the downsides for the team, the only explanation for regional teams not being able to register for a district event so far down in the registration process. I mean, when you look at the logistics of it, like a district team in Indiana registers for a district in Michigan, like at the last possible moment, like that they could feasibly do it while still plan for travel, right? There's really no impact to the district that you're registering for if it's a regional team or if it's a team from another district, right? It doesn't count for anything regardless. The only reason that regional teams are locked out of it is because First loses $3,000 to $4,000 on that venture, right? And I mean, you look at all the hoops that districts have to run through, and it's all about the money. You got to trace it back to the money every time. So I've come to accept it at that point. I mean, it is what it's going to be. First uses FRC to fund a majority of what they do. I mean, championships is made on the back of FRC teams every year, and 2 champs will be made on the back of FRC teams' registration fees. And so you got to follow the money back to why this protocol is in place. There's really no downside to having a regional team or another district team coming into a district. They're not going to impact the load on the district system, because this is like, again, it's relegated to the very, very end of the system, right? This is like after everybody has had a chance to register, after that district has had a chance to get all their rookie teams registered and put onto events, and teams have had a chance to register for a 3rd event in their home district. Like, that's where these teams are getting relegated to, but yet it's still not open to regional teams, because First would lose $4,000 on each team. So, I mean, that's what I've come to accept at this point. I'm not broken about it. I mean, we would have to go up to Oregon anyway, and we're not going to drive up that far, so we'll just do our events in NorCal. But you know, that's the climate right now, and I think there's other teams that are closer to district systems that are getting hit more by it, and I understand their pain. But you know, you just kind of got to be pragmatic about it, understand why the policy's in place.
Well, you know, speaking of pain, I think in Wisconsin we are feeling that a little bit. You know, FIM's been around us for a long time, and you know, with rumors of Illinois potentially going district sometime soon, if you know, for us and teams in Wisconsin, we're losing opportunities left and right potentially in the next couple of years of where we can go. And I guess I understand the whole money situation, but I don't really see how that's any different from a district team registering than from outside the district than to have a traditional team register for it. So all I can say, you know, is Michigan, let us in, because we want to get in there. As much as I might not be too excited to potentially go to a championship in Detroit, I am extremely ecstatic if my team had a potential to go compete somewhere with another FIM team or Indiana or another area around us.
Yeah, I mean, I started back mentoring with 234 in 2009, which was the first year that Michigan went district, and it was tough on us to have so many events so close that we couldn't go to. And that first year, our second regional was in Washington, D.C., which was a 10-hour drive away, and it was great for our students to get them the exposure of going to Washington, D.C., and we had a great time. It was a rookie event. It cost us a lot more from a travel budget perspective to not be able to go up to Michigan. And again, I think that this is something that eventually this wall will fall down, maybe honestly as early as next year. And I have no inside information on that. That's just kind of the feeling that I get. As someone who's in a district, I'm on the board now for Indiana First. Our first priority with our events is to make sure that we have enough slots for all of our teams to get their 2 events. After that, if a team's coming in from outside, it really doesn't matter to me if they're from Michigan or Ohio or Wisconsin, or if they want to come in from Hawaii. We're just excited to have them there and to have a full event. And I think outside teams coming in is part of what makes FRC special.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I mean, from a money perspective, like First charges for the state championship because on average, they'll get the amount of teams that qualify for the state championship, and that's like the second registration fee that's replacing the profit loss that they don't get from the second district event. So when you have a team that's willing to do 2 regional events, and then they get First has the profit loss on that second event because they went to a district instead, that's where the finances don't balance out, right? So like First has to look at the whole region and how much they're funding out of that region. to see, are we going to break even on this new system that we evaluate, or is this new system going to lose us money? And unfortunately, that historically has been the driving factor for a lot of these policies that really just don't make sense from a financial perspective. The program's been around for 20 years and the costs haven't gone down. I mean, you can look at it from a lot of different ways, but that's really where it's at right now. It's an unfortunate reality of the situation we're in.
That's a great point, Mike. Well, speaking about registration, kickoff has been confirmed for January 9th, pushing stop build day and regional and district competitions back an entire week versus what it's been in a couple previous years. Well, this may hinder booking hotels while waiting another week at championships. A huge win for FIRST this year has been publishing regional and district dates early so teams can anticipate travel and plan ahead. So guys, with competition registration coming up next Thursday, let's throw it out to you. Which events would you like to participate in outside of the usual events that you might attend?
That's a good question. We just run the Northern California circuit. We have weeks 2, 4, and 6 up here. We try to sneak our way into SVR if we can, which is a week 6 event. If we can't, then we'll just go to 2 regionals. It's not really worth it for us to make long drives and pay a lot of extra travel costs. The team has to pay for all the travel fees that we incur. So,
well, let's say that aside, where would you like to go?
Oh man, if I could go anywhere and compete,
yeah.
I would want to go up to Canada. Definitely, I'd want to play with 1114 and 2056 on the regional level and see how that shakes out. Just kind of like what 254 did last year. I think it'd just be a lot of fun. I mean, the only reason we're where we're at is because we get to play with teams like 254 and 971 on a regular basis, and they push us to really set the bar even higher. And I think the bar may be just a little bit higher even up there in Canada with what 1114 and 2056 have done with the region. And it'd be really fun to be in that sort of atmosphere for an event. So any event that 2056 and 1114 are going to theoretically sweep again in 2016, I want to be at.
So I actually had the opportunity to go to the Israeli regional in 2013 and had an amazing time. So that's one that I would encourage anyone interested in to attend. And I'd imagine you could say the same thing about all the international events. They just offer such a great opportunity to expose students to things outside their normal sphere. The Israeli regional is like a 3-day party, unlike what you see, I think, at a lot of stateside FRC events. I also love new regionals and the Alabama regional, all the discussion around all the great barbecue that's surrounding that area. The fact that it's at NASA, at a NASA facility, I think would be a really cool place to go to an event. So I think the Alabama regional would be on my list as well.
Yeah, I'll second the Israel regional. When I went in 2012, it felt like what FIRST felt like in 2005 and 2006, where there's a ton of really creative designs. I mean, coming from California where everyone's rocking a West Coast and everyone's got the powder coat and everyone's copying 254, which is the right thing to do because their robots are awesome. It was refreshing to see a field of competition where teams are effectively using a tennis racket to hit the ball into the hoop. I mean, that's the stuff that you see in Israel that I didn't see anywhere else in 2012. So definitely, and the people there are incredibly friendly. Just some of the nicest people I've ever met were at the Israel Regional. So definitely I'll give a second to the Israel Regional if anyone wants to check it out.
A couple that I gotta chime in for, and Mike, maybe to piggyback you off a little bit, I would love to be able to go to one of the Canadian regionals at some point in time. And one of the things that really intrigues me to that, obviously, you know, the best teams in Canada, but I remember watching years when we had cooperation, and whether you like it or not, irrelevant, is that it just seemed like more teams there were doing the cooperation versus other U.S. states regionals. And to me, I would just love to be in that dynamic where you have every team wants to work together to achieve a common goal, whether you're with or against. I'm not saying that doesn't happen at state competitions I've been to, but I just felt like it was more, and I want to experience more of that camaraderie. A couple others for me, all the international events just to get different cultures would be great. I think one of the coolest things about FIRST is the networking that you get with other teams, and one of the benefits that we had this year was becoming very networked with the high rollers. And I know a lot of my team keeps saying, "Hey, let's do a home-to-home out in Las Vegas." And I would like to think my mentors don't just want to go out there for Las Vegas, that they actually want to go and compete. But I would really love to go experience that because I know they get some of the draw from the California and PNW teams as well.
Yeah, 987 and that Las Vegas crew, they put on a great event. I had the opportunity to go there once, and I would also like to say that I didn't just go there because it's Vegas, and I had a very good time. So a lot of off-season events, we're kind of running down to the end here on the off-season schedule. A lot of off-season events make changes to the game rules for their events. Here's an interesting take on a change to the 2015 game. Just don't play it. That's right, the Madtown Throwdown, starting on November 13th in California, has decided to play the 2014 game Aerial Assist and not Recycle Rush due to feedback from various teams. Now, it's their event, and that's really the beauty of the off-season schedule, is being able to do something like this. Mike, you've said on Chief Delphi that not only is 1678 competing, and you're excited about competing, but you're actually building 2 extra robots for it. What is it about this change that has your team so excited?
Well, I was just excited to have actually a little bit of fun in 2015 and enjoy an event. So, you know what? I think I just had someone at the door. Tyler, do you mind talking about this for a little bit?
I can go first. Go get your door-to-door salesman at 6 o'clock.
Awesome.
So for me, there's a couple things that go into this. One, I think there's a lot of animosity around the 2015 game, and I don't know what Mike's thoughts are, but being a team that was on the Einstein area, there's a lot of areas of opportunity that could have been presented with that. And the 2014 game, I think overall, is a lot more well received, and I think that's really what you said, Collin. The beauty of off-season events is you can do what you want. Now, to me, the only potential disadvantage I see is there might be some teams who can't attend because they don't have their 2014 robot. Maybe they scrapped it to build their 2015 robot. Not every team's able to upkeep a robot year to year to year. With that said as well, though, too, it doesn't mean there aren't plenty of teams who don't have their 2014 robot ready to go, and it looks like they're looking at getting a pretty good capacity there as well, too. So there must be enough teams that are interested in playing that. The other thing I think that's kind of neat about 2014, I do think, to me, anytime you have flying projectiles, I think is a good appeal to the public coming in. And for 2015, I think the game, there was some things that were pretty easy to understand, stacking toads on the platform, but the 2014 game, I think, is one of the most simplistic games described to somebody coming in. So if you're trying to get somebody new or from the outside in the first, I think the 2014 game is a good option to go with something like that. And like I said, it's their event. If that's what they want to run, and go play if you're interested. If you don't like it, don't play.
Exactly. It's the off-season. Go ahead, Mike.
Well, I was just going to say, I was one of the people, it was me and Austin Shu who were talking with RC about if we could actually pull it off or not, and RC did like a little interest survey, and we had enough people, and I promised RC we'd bring 3 robots to the event, which we've never done before. We've only ever brought our competition robot and then a practice robot that we give to a rookie team. Like if we're starting a rookie team, we'll let them drive our practice robot at the event to give them some experience and show them what it's all about. We're really excited about the chance to play the 2014 game again. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. Apparently, RC and the rest of 1323, they found the old game elements from last year, like the metal goals. We thought first got rid of them, but they were the last off-season last year, and it turns out those travel boxes just stayed at Madeira, and they found them this year, so we're going to be using the official field.
What a nice coincidence.
It'll be a blast. I know, yeah. We actually were expecting to have to make them out of wood, but it turns out that they still exist, which is nice. Everyone else had scrapped them for parts. But yeah, we're really excited to play a game with contact. Hopefully it'll be good practice for 2016. Who knows what the game's going to be like. I'm hoping they move away from senior FLL and take us back to really fun games. And it'll be great practice. We have a new driver, too. Our driver for the last 4 years just graduated. He's at college now, so it'll be good practice testing out full contact games and stuff like that. So we're really excited about it. We're excited to build a couple robots for it. It'll be some good practice for the kids in the off season, and it should be just a really fun event. So, and I think we got a good turnout so far. Hopefully, we'll get the 2014 mark, 24 teams if not more, to buy on it. So, should be fun.
Yeah, it certainly seems like the planning committee has done their homework, talked to the teams to make sure that there was the interest there. Like you said, found the pieces that they needed to make it work. So, kudos to them for taking a risk, and I hope it pays off for them. I hope it's everything that all the teams want it to be. I think it'll be really cool to watch. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, should be fun.
All right, well, here's a bonus headline segment. It's a little bit out of the first realm, but so important that we really do need to talk about it this week. This Monday, and hopefully you've heard that there was an Irving, Texas high school freshman student arrested and suspended for bringing in his invention that was a digital clock into school. Ahmed Mohammed was cuffed because his teacher believed that his invention looked like a bomb and was, quote, a threat to her. While charges were dropped, Ahmed was still required to serve out his suspension. He's also thinking about transferring to another school, and probably rightfully so. And the hashtag #IStandWithAhmed movement has built up great traction in the online and celebrity community with the support of those like President Obama, astronaut Chris Hadfield, and Facebook founder Mark Zuckerberg. Now, guys, there's a lot we can discuss here with this, and I'd like to keep this as technology-driven as possible. So, one, let me ask, can somebody get this kid onto a first team as soon as possible? And second, even though what happened to Ahmed was terrible, is there any positives we can take out of the situation to use in the future?
It's a good question. I mean, I think the discussion has already been started, and I think there's quite a few people that are working and inviting this kid onto first teams, either FRC or FTC. So I'm going to trust that some great people in Texas have that covered. As far as positives that we can take away from this, I mean, it's great that this kid is inventing and doing stuff. I mean, it's great just to see that sort of passion still alive in students. You know what I mean? To tinker and build and explore technology. So kudos to him for doing that. I mean, for me, this is a Facebook viral activism thread that will be silent in 2 weeks. And those come by every 1 or 2 weeks, and everybody loves someone to hate and a black and white situation that may not be as black and white as it's shown on the internet. So that's the way that I view it, I guess, a little bit more ambivalently. But I mean, obviously there was clear signs of racism and other things going on that are not good. Positives, I think positives for this kid, just doing what he does and doing awesome stuff. So I hope that he's not discouraged from continuing to explore and learn and have fun doing it. So that's what I think.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest with you both. When I first heard the story on the radio and started reading about it, I didn't really know where to start and where to start thinking. The things that stand out to me was the way the tech community, including FIRST and the great FIRST sponsor NASA have reached out to Ahmed, trying to encourage him to stay engaged and interested. I hope we can get him involved with FIRST. He certainly seems like an ideal student. Another thing is the power of the internet to enact change, and Mike, I think you're right. It can be fleeting. And sometimes people get worn out with internet controversy, and at the same time it can get things done. Who knows if the charges would have been dropped so quickly, and if all these people would have rallied around him had the internet not kind of swelled up and taken this story on. So hopefully this story can make people think about the way they view the world a little bit and help us all change and get better. I think it's interesting. My senior year of high school, we built a potato gun. We were studying compressed fluids and how compressed fluids react with different things. So we built a potato gun that fired a potato 300 yards, and nobody said boo about us doing that. That seems a lot more dangerous than a clock.
Archaic references here were more dangerous than
we did that on school property.
Yeah.
So,
totally.
That's where I am with it.
Yeah.
I think one of the things that come up to me is, I think we talked about how he got exonerated from any charges or whatever technical term you use for that. And I think a lot of that was when he went to the press himself, and I think that really shows, just what an amazing student this person is. I don't know him personally, so I don't really know everything about him, but I think he would identify as being a nerd. I think he would call himself that, and to be able to get up and stand up for himself when something happens to him, and be able to get out into the whole world essentially. I mean, there's worldwide reach for this, and things do come and go for a lot of things. But I guess a positive I get out of this is just that hopefully a student like that will just build upon himself and continue moving forward, and it sounds like he's going to.
Yeah, and he said that he was on a robotics club in middle school, and so I'm wondering, part of me wonders if he was on a VEX team or an FTC or an FLL team at his middle school, and if there's the potential to get something going at his high school, because it seems like not only do they have the talent coming in, but there's a real need for it.
Yeah.
All right, and that's a look at our headlines. It's time for our discussion segment where we'll take on subjects that have been interesting in the FRC community and would like to expand upon. So, gentlemen, the first one we have here is the First Devil's Dictionary. Chief Delphi has taken its own version of the Devil's Dictionary, and they made some pretty funny and compelling definitions. It's a very long thread if you've had a chance to go through it. Mike, I'll start with you. Are there any ones that stood out to you that you kind of liked and wanted to talk about a little bit?
Oh, man. I mean, I think anyone related to 2056 just wins made me crack up. Like, definition of 2056 is winning. Yeah, I mean, it just brought up so many like inside jokes and also just jokes that have been building up in my own first experience for the last 12 years. So it was definitely a funny thread to read through, for sure. I don't have any specific definitions I can cite right now, but I'm reading through it right now as we speak.
Sure.
Yeah, the two that stood out to me, first was Mecanum wheel, noun, defined as a wheel for going in every direction if your programmers had just one more week with the drivetrain. It made me laugh as soon as I read it. I've been to so many events where I've seen teams using Mecanum wheels as the most expensive Omni wheels they could buy, and I feel for the programmers and the people on that team that had this vision of an omnidirectional drivetrain that just never materialized for whatever reason. I also liked Stop Build Day, noun, which is defined as a day that is 45 days after teams start building their robots and 63 days before all teams have stopped. And I just think, I think to me, Stop Build Day is one of the largest misnomers in FRC today. All the robots that you see, kind of celebrated at the world stage, those robots aren't built in 45 days. They're iterated upon and improved upon throughout the entire season, and that's what makes them so great.
Yeah.
Well, and maybe to add on to that, and I think we've all been in first for quite some time. So if we take a look back, like my freshman year in high school was 2001. It was the 2001 season, and I think that's kind of one of the amazing evolutions of first. Is back then, I mean, when Stop Build Day came or Ship Day came, we were done. We didn't touch anything. We didn't build second robots. We didn't do anything like that at all. And for better or worse, based on time commitment and your own personal health, having the opportunity to iterate over and over again and giving, in this case, what turns out to be usually programmers an actual chance to work on the robot before competition, I think that's a great opportunity. And it's, I think it's always kind of it's been a little bit of a gray line, but I think First has more than been willing to, as long as you keep that robot in a bag until you get to regionals, or if you have your unbagged time for districts. I think it's a good way to moving forward. And it's a good evolution in First. So I have a couple as well too that have come out to me, and one was by my buddy Chris Picone, and it's adjective mentor built, and it was a team describing a robot that is better than your own and/or a robot with paint on it. And I'll give a little backstory to it and why I really like this so much. When I was in high school, the 2001 through 2004 season, there was one dominant team in First, and that was Team 71 Beatty Hammond. And that team won 3 out of 4 years that I was in high school. And the first thing I thought, coming to First, not knowing anything about it, is that, that team, their mentors build everything. The students don't do anything. That's how their robots are so good. And we even thought at a certain point that the operator on the team was over the age of 18, and I wanted to see his driver's license. So it's just that not fully understanding of how teams work in the background. And to me, it's whatever inspires students to make teams work better, the better it is. One other one I had as well was the autonomous mode, and that was a noun. It's a movement of silence observed prior to week 1 or week 2 matches. And I'd like to throw this out to you guys, if you don't mind, maybe to elaborate a little bit more on this. That's always been something that's perplexed me so much, especially if in this year's game where you can get points for just moving your robot forward. Why are there teams that don't have autonomous modes in week 1 or week 2?
It's just, it's where a lot of teams are at. I mean, the level of or the lack of guidance that a majority of FRC teams have, or lack, I guess. I don't know if I'm using double negatives right now. It's staggering how little guidance a lot of FRC teams have, and that's why you see teams not moving week 1 or 2. If teams recognize, for example, if teams recognize that they could contribute more to their alliance by building a box that shot 3 frisbees into the goal than they did the entire season, just by building a robot that did that. That's stuff, but that's stuff that you can't give that foresight to many of these teams. It's just kind of where teams are at. I don't know. I think it's always going to be, unless like First stops throwing red herrings into things, unless they give better guidance in like the game manual or in the game animation to rookie teams, like, hey, rookie teams, don't try this, do this. Unless First is like forcing this stuff down people's throats and they want to listen to it, it's going to be how it always is going to be. It's always going to be teams slow to start and really lagging behind, especially in the autonomous routines.
Yeah, and I think it comes down to something that you see probably in your professional environment as well. It's project management. It's knowing what our resources are, what we can and can't do, and allocating those resources appropriately, and getting the robot done in time to be able to put in the default code that has everything written there for you to get it to move forward 5 feet. It's for a lot of teams, just getting something that can pass inspection is enough of a challenge. And I think as a community, it's important that we keep pushing to get beyond that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sure. Our next discussion topic is the Alliance Captain versus last pick in Alliance selection thread. And I don't know how you guys voted on this, so we can talk about this in just a moment, but our friend Karthik posted on Chief Delphi pretty much proposing a scenario saying that one of 2 things. One is you're competing at a 30-team regional. It's your last event of the season, and your team is not qualified for the championship. Would you rather be an Alliance captain and potentially not win, or be the last pick but win the regional going to the championships? And the second part is kind of throwing the same thing at championships. When you're in a division, would you rather be the Alliance captain and not make it to Einstein, or to be the last pick and make it to Einstein? So Collin, can I start out with you? Where did you go on this, and what were your thoughts behind it?
Yeah, so I think I actually read the question wrong when I first voted. I chose Alliance captain in both situations. I didn't, I guess, read all the way through the part about where when you're making the selection, that you're going to win the event and be that 24th pick. Mainly because I would rather be in at least some control of my alliance than be banking on the fact that the number 1 seed would pick me. And I think it really varies depending on the team. I've been on teams where being an alliance captain would be the high point of our season. I've been on other teams where we want to get to championship and test ourselves against the best teams in the world. So I don't know. It's still a toss-up for me at the regional level. I think the championship is just such a different beast because there are so many great teams there. You look at the teams that are 24th robots, the last pick of that number 1 seed every year, and it's incredible. They're regional winners and amazing teams. So in that situation, absolutely put me on the team that's going to Einstein. I want that experience.
Mike, where do you fall?
I answered the last pick on both questions. Coming from the experience on 1678, there really isn't. There aren't a lot. I won't say there isn't, but there aren't a lot of things that are as a shot in the arm to a team as winning an event. It's one reason why I love the district system. It splits up all the wins to a ton of events, and teams can get that shot in an arm at multiple levels, at the district qualifier level, at the district championship level, or at the championship level. But really, what it does is it it encourages and it emboldens a group of students in a way that I really haven't seen from a lot of other events in a team's history. It's really what has propelled us forward. I mean, we were like, I think ranked like 10th in OPR or maybe 15th in OPR in 2013, and we for some reason had the God match schedule of the century, and we barely squeaked by a first seed by like 6 autonomous points over the Skunkworks, and then we scorched the field and we made it to Einstein. I mean, and we even won our first match on Einstein. I mean, that kick-started for us something that was just insane, and that happened because of a lot of luck and winning an event, and the winning is what encouraged the kids to keep going forward, and actually the winning has continued to propel us. But I would take the win every time because I see the effect that it has on a group of students. And when you're talking about something that's a robotics team, it's all about student buy-in and how much they buy into the program and how much they're willing to give to the program. And I've found the students are willing to give more and more the more they see the team propelling and increasing in success. I mean, that's the way I've seen it. And I think the success that comes out of an event win is kind of a rubber stamp on this team is going somewhere. It's something that's worth putting your effort behind. Put more time into it. Learn more. Grow more in your technical skills. Give more to the team. Give more to outreach. All that stuff gets propelled from these wins, and I've seen it in the teams that we won with 1671 and 5012. They've propelled after this event. It's very fun to watch. And it happens because of wins like that. And there's only a couple winners and a lot of people that don't win, and so the shot in the arm is something really special. And I would take the shot in the arm anytime I can get it.
Well, you sided with a majority. If we look at the poll results, over 52% chose winning no matter what and being that last pick. I kind of have two things that weigh my mind a little bit with this, and one being, man, I love being an alliance captain. It is so fun to be able to pick your own destiny moving forward, even if you do fail for that. On the other hand, though, for me, I want to be able to give my students the most amount of experience they can out of the program. That's getting the championships, and that's always been our team's goal every year. Is no matter what, we need to do what we can to get the championships, because that's an extra layer of experience that our kids are going to get, and it propels you moving forward. I mean, if you get knocked out before getting the championships, are you really going to keep iterating on your robot and doing things with your practice bot and keep meeting as many days a week as you do before? And I can tell you in 2014 when we didn't qualify, no, we didn't. And to be able to give students more motivation to keep working really, really hard to accomplish a goal, that's the beauty of it. So I think for me, actually, as long as we get the championships, I don't care where we lie. I have to admit, for championships, I kind of want to pick my own destiny, and I kind of like having that. Even though that wasn't our case this year necessarily, being picked and getting the Einstein was an amazing experience, don't get me wrong, but I kind of like having that alliance captain feel to things. It's a little bit of variance in opinions there. All right, next discussion topic is game pieces coming up. There's a thread that kind of talks about what makes a good game piece, and I'm going to kind of tack on with that is on what game pieces do we need to see? What game piece do you most want to see coming up? So, Mike, I'm going to throw that to you. And maybe talk about a little bit what makes a good game piece, because I think there's a lot of things about making things available for people to buy, that sort of thing like that. But what are you really looking forward to for a game piece in future years, and what do you think it's going to be next year?
Oh man, I have absolutely no clue what it could be next year. As far as I mean, I just don't want the game piece to cost me an arm and a leg. I don't want to have to run to a bunch of Walmarts in my local area to scrounge a couple of broken ones from the back of the store. Yeah, there's not a lot that I'm like looking forward to using. Frisbees, I think maybe would have been the last one on my list, and then those got used in 2013, which I think was a great move. I love that game. Yeah, I mean, as long as it's consistent and I don't have to. I mean, there were teams that were like poking holes in the 2012 balls to get them to work the same way as the balls that were in their shop. I mean, there's lots of ridiculous things that people will do to get the game element to behave like a properly formulated system and not this variable that they don't want to have to deal with. So I would rather the game element variation not be there and see something that's pretty consistent. That's going to be up to first to decide. But specifics, I haven't put much thought to it. I saw that big chicken video. I don't think it's going to be rubber chickens. I mean, I may have to, throw in the towel if I have to listen to those rubber chickens yell at every team meeting I go to. So I'm gonna say no on the rubber chickens, but anything that doesn't make a noise that's excessively loud, I think I'm game for it. So.
Well, and let's hope that at regional events we don't have people with a bunch of rubber chickens having those go off as well.
That's bad.
Tyler,
it's gonna be the first Vuvuzela. Collin, how about yourself? Anything to comment on this?
So I guess I won't venture a guess as to what the game piece is, because I feel like no matter how much of a disclaimer I put out there to say that I don't know what it is, I doubt people will believe me. And on the off chance that I was right, I don't want to have people be mad at me that I gave it away early. I will say what I think makes a good game piece, and Mike really hit on them: availability and reliability. I think the ideal game piece is one that teams can get as many as they want at a relatively cheap price, and pretty quickly, and one that acts the same across events, and from the first match of the season to the last. I still, and it sounded like Mike has the same memories of driving around in 2009 looking for orbit balls at Walmart after kickoff because somebody posted on Chief Delphi that they were going out of stock, and so I demolished all the Walmarts in my area trying to find them, and now we still have them, or 234 still has them, sitting around their shop. I actually have one that I like to play with my son with. He enjoys it, so it's nice that we've been able to keep it, and that made a good game piece for demos. That's a fun robot to have for that, once you put some wheels on it that you can actually control the robot with. So yeah, those are my big two things: are availability and reliability.
I think for me, a couple things that pop in my head is, man, I love projectiles, and that's why I love things like 2012, 2013, and we'll talk about some of our favorite games coming up in just a little bit. But for a good game piece, I got to go. I agree with Mike 100% on this. That the variability of the game piece, the less variability you can take out of it, the better. And I know for our team in 2012. That was something where we just had to take away pretty much all the compression on the ball and just go as high RPM as possible to try to get something close to what it was. So having the least amount of variability and something like a Frisbee where you do have a hard game piece, I think helped out with that. Now, you had to put nets up everywhere, and there's things of that too. But to me, less variability and to have something that's going to be really fun to shoot in the air, to shoot at a target or something like that. I love having projectiles because to me that's what gets, for demos, that's what gets kids and other people engaged and involved, and kind of gives that wow factor a little bit more than, robot stacking totes to, somebody else coming in, John CEO might think that's, understand that a bit more, but random person coming in might not fully get, what's the point or why are we doing this, that sort of thing like that. I will give my prediction on next year's game piece though, because I think there's kind of a trend, I think a lot of people have pointed out, so I think we're due for a small ball year is where I'm going. So I kind of prefaced this a little bit before, but one of the other threads was the top 4-year game career, and talking about that was posted as, if you were a student on a team for a full 4 years, which 4-year span do you think would be the greatest to have been on a team? So Collin, I'll start out with you first. All three of us have been around for quite some time, I think pretty much in this whole century and millennium so far. So out of the games that you've either witnessed or been part of or know of, what do you think would be the best 4 years for a student on a team?
Sure. So I'm going to go with 2010 to 2013. 2010 Breakaway was just a great design challenge with the large bumps that really screwed up drivetrains for a little while, and ball handling requirements. The rankings were a little screwy, but other than that, I think that the game was really, really good, and championships that year was those final matches were really exciting, no matter which side you were pulling for. 2011, it was a good ARM game. The mini-bots were an interesting new twist. We probably could have executed them a little bit better. I feel like that was a neat twist to throw at teams, something that hadn't been done before. 2012, a lot of fun with robots playing basketball. I'm from Indiana, and so basketball is in my blood. I loved being at first that year because we had basketball goals set up in the build space. So I just go out there and shoot baskets when I needed to step away from the computer for a couple of minutes. And I think it's probably the best game in recent history in terms of how well it scales with all levels of gameplay. Whether you were at the week 1 regional and had people playing the game for the first time to kind of the top level competition, I think it scaled really well. And then ending your career with 2013 would have been really great. And people have talked about how great Ultimate Ascent was. What's really interesting to me is that when 2013 was first released, there were some people who kind of got on it about being Rebound Rumble with Frisbees. And in a lot of ways, they're right. And I think it's because that game was actually closer to Evolution of 2012 than a complete revolution that the scoring and gameplay were as robust as they were, and one of the reasons that the game played out so well. I also think that 3 of those games, 2010, 2013, and 2012, were kind of the easiest to explain to a general audience and looked the most like sports, which is probably why they kind of stand out in my mind.
All right, Mike, how about you? Top 4 of your career?
Yeah, I had a tough time thinking about this. I mean, it was in my mind. It was split between 2004 to 2007, and then 2011 to 2014. I think I'm going to go with 2011 to 2014, and I think it's because 2012 and 2013 were just so good. I picked 2014 over 2010 because I really thought the action at most events was really slow for 2010. A lot of teams getting beached on soccer balls, a lot of teams getting beached on steps, a lot of 0-1, 0-2, 1-1 score. I mean, I just thought the game was a lot slower with all the restrictions on how you could control a soccer ball. I don't think a lot of teams expected it to be so hard just to kick something. But a lot of teams would bump up to it, the ball would bump away, they'd fire their shooter, and they just totally whiff. I mean, it was like Charlie Brown, every event, every match. That's what you were seeing, just whiffing on the kick. So I went with 2014. I mean, 2011 through 2013, totally agree with Collin. I mean, those were all. I really enjoyed all 3 of those games, actually. Even 2011 with the mini bots. The mini bots I thought were a fun challenge. It was an arms race, which was annoying, just like 2015. But I liked the game overall. I liked the protection in the scoring zones. I liked the ability to make these big arms and the cool game pieces, although they did have the size repeatability issues. 2010 or 14. I didn't like it from an overall game perspective. I thought it was bad for rookie teams in the sense of they couldn't do this catapult that they had made because someone else had a better catapult on their alliance, and only one person was going to throw the ball through the goal. But I loved how close it was to an actual sport, and I think it was actually first closest game to a robotics sport. Like if robots weren't basing their sport off of a pre-existing sport, they made their own sport, it would be 2014, and we would play 2014 all the time because there were plays. Right, there's key roles. I mean, a lot of things that go into these well-evolved sports that have been played for decades, hundreds of years. There were a lot of those elements tied into 2014, and the level of strategy and plays and counterplays that you could throw into a match were really exciting. So that's why I took 2014 over 2010. Just personal preference, I guess. But I think any student going through the 2011 to 2013 era had a lot of really great games to chew on.
Yeah, I got to agree with you guys. It was a top 3-year career. I would 100% pick 2011 through 2013. To me, 2010, the best thing that came out of that is that we still had championships in Atlanta. But the finals of 2010 were phenomenal. I mean, that was one of the best finals ever done. And Mike, I'm glad you picked the latter years or early, closer years, because to me, 2004 to 2007 was one of the most amazing times to be a student on it. That was 2004 was my senior year, but I had friends moving on past it, and to me, you got to kind of see a full evolution of first, in my opinion, where you went 2004, you had the 2v2 game, 2005, you had the 3v3, and then autonomous mode just kept getting better and better. So for me, 2004, I think you had some of the most creative and different designs amongst robots because there was so much to do that year. 2005, the strategy of that, playing essentially tic-tac-toe, but in a really fast, repetitive pace, was really fun to watch. 2006, I think some people rip on because of the periods that were set up, where you can only be on offense or only on defense in certain periods of time. But, I mean, holy cow, to me, that was the first year where I really got autonomous, and it really made sense to me about how cool autonomous could be when you had teams just shooting so many balls that the ball chute would get jammed up, and you're trying to poke it with a PVC pipe just to try to get them out. And then 2007, I really liked a lot because you had robots working together, where you had to be able to have one robot that had a role of actually lifting two other robots up in the air. I thought that was a really neat experience as well.
Absolutely, totally. It was a good 4 year, good 4 years to be a student for sure.
And I can't remember if it was the summer of 2010 or the summer of 2011. Either Frank or Bill, I think at that point it was still Bill, did a survey on of what people's favorite game was, and I think that 2006 ran away with that, and so obviously that was before Rebound Rumble or Ultimate Ascent. But so yeah, 2006 had a lot of love.
Let's go for a small ball year again this year then. Sweet. All right, it's time to talk about our up-and-coming competitions we have. We're going to discuss the future events and with predictions of teams and strategy, and this discussion is going to be all about Chezy Champs, which is only a couple short days away, and it's going to feature a little over 30 of the best of the West teams. Some of these teams include host 254, as well as world champions 1678 and 1671, and so many more. Now, there's some interesting rule changes that are going on at Chezy Champs that are, quote, going further than IRI and Fix and Recycle Rush. Some of these additions include flipping the 5 gray totes against the left side of the step. Only litter in recycling containers will be scored, and going further to say that litter that contacts anything on the other alliance's side is a yellow card. The rule changes also allow any number of alliance members to be in the human player zone, and contacting the chute door and totes simultaneously is legal. Now, it seems to me that the Chezy Champs Committee is focusing on eliminating any types of defense and only going for high scores. And while we saw how exciting IRI was with scores over 300, Mike, are you excited or disappointed to see these types of defenses eliminated from the 2015 game at Chezy Champs?
So I'm personally, it's bittersweet. So, let's like the two things that I'm excited but also are bittersweet about it. The first one I'm just flat out excited about. There's no more noodle throwing at all. Thank goodness. Those noodles won't be on the floor on my side of the field. I think someone commented when they saw the new Vex game, they're like, but when do the kids get to throw the straws out onto the field to clog up the Vex robots? I mean, when you think about it on a more of a macro level, we're so acclimated to it because we've been thinking about this game since January, but it's honestly ridiculous that was a deciding factor for some matches was how well a kid could throw a fun noodle. So I'm glad to see that is removed. The second element, and it's really what 1678 we built our season on, was the can race. And the can race is gone. I mean, it was gone since IRI, I believe. So really, I mean, we built our robot around the can race. We knew how important the can race is going to be. We allocated 30 pounds of our robot for our can grabber mechanism, so we built the rest of the stacking robot under 90 pounds because we knew how important the cans were going to be. Even though we initially thought you grab all 4, and we had a 4 grab mechanism, and we eventually whittled that down. But we had 30 pounds of can grabber on that robot to try to beat the next person to the cans. And so for that can race to be gone, it really cuts out a lot of our competitiveness. We've spent this summer doing a lot of other stuff besides working on our 2015 robot. The kids are kind of over the 2015 game. We bought 3 more mills and 2 more lathes, so we have 5 Bridgeport mills now that we're trying to get up to speed for the 2016 season and get kids trained on them. So we've been doing a lot of other stuff. We're there to really have fun. We're not even scouting. Our kids are going there to meet other teams and to help out other teams and introduce themselves, do a lot more networking, and make friends. So we're really excited for Chezy Champs from that perspective. And we'll have our robot up and running. It'll be in its 2015 World Championship class, but beyond that, we haven't done a lot of work to modify our robot to meet some of the more flexible rulings that have been introduced into Chezy Champs. And we're actually adopting the same rules for Capital City Classic. We're just running with the exact same Chezy Champs rules. We're going to run Chezy Arena. We're doing all the things the same way because I think it's a better game without those elements. I mean, I didn't want to spend all summer trying to make our cam grabbers even faster. So I'm very glad that kids are going to be a little bit safer without 120-mile-an-hour cam grabbers. So yeah, I mean that's my thoughts on the rules. It definitely is a huge disservice to our particular strategy because we pretty much, I mean, a lot of our championship win was based around how fast we could get those cans. But I'm glad to see the rule changes. I do think it makes the game better, even if it's a disservice to our particular strategy.
Well, and maybe talking about elaborate a little bit more on that. One of the things at IRI, you know, for waiver box going to IRI when we went there, and there's a lot of similar rules between the two. We were ecstatic for can battles to be gone, because for us, you know, not having can grabbers and be able to focus much more on everything outside of that, that was a phenomenal thing for us. So I'm glad you're very humbled in that, because for some teams, yeah, it's going to be great. Some teams it's not. But in the end, you know what? We're all playing at a high competitive level, and we're giving our students another opportunity to compete. And I think that's what's really important, regardless of what competition you're at.
Yeah.
Mike, are there any teams at Chezy Champs? Any predictions you got here other than 1678? Who do you think's really going to take it away this year?
Yeah, well, I mean, like I said, I think there's actually other teams that are poised to play Recycle Rush version 2 better than we are. I've been seeing a lot of hype from Code Orange recently that they're putting up a lot of stacks. I was chatting with one of their guys a day or two ago. So it seems like they're coming in with a lot of practice, which is great for them. I mean, I'm really excited to see a lot of the ways that teams have built up their robots. Personally, we decided not to continue to iterate our robot after championship. We've been using it for demos a lot, but like I said, we put our resources elsewhere. But where we were at the exact same spot 2 years ago, where we were iterating our robot before off-season events, and it was a really great thing for our team to do. So I'm really excited for all the teams that have chosen to do that, Code Orange being one of them. Griffin Gears, our alliance partners for the World Championship, I saw that they've updated their robot stacking capability, and they still got 118's can grabbers on there, which is fun too. So 118, our fourth alliance partner, will be at Chezy Champs. They just won't be there entirely, just part of their robot, which will be fun. But yeah, I mean, I think we're going to see a lot of California teams that did some iterating. It's going to be a lot of fun to watch them compete. Like I said, I think Code Orange might be one of the favorites going into the event because of all the work that they've done over the fall, which is great for them. I mean, I think that's going to be a lot of fun to compete with them. I don't know if we have a match with them on the new schedule or not. Hopefully we do. They're a great group of people down there. But and obviously Bird Brains are going to be bringing it. They were such a consistent stacking force at championship. They were trying to stretch themselves in the quals, and so they didn't look as good, and they kind of snuck down really low. And man, we knew how good they could be after Sacramento because they seeded higher than us. So, I mean, I think they're going to be bringing it in full force at Champs, and obviously 254 has one of the best robots this year, hands down. I mean, being able to throw 200 points plus on their own in a game like this year's game is just incredible. So they will obviously be a force to contend with. So a lot of great teams on the West Coast. It's always fun. It's always a big reunion. I think 971 is using their third robot. They've been building a new robot over the summer as practice for their kids, and I don't think they're running. I haven't talked to Austin about it, but I'm pretty sure they aren't running either of their other robots, and they're running this brand new robot that the kids made, which will be fun to see compete too. So, like I said, there's a lot of great things teams are doing, but I think it's very much a different game than we saw during the regular season. So it'll be interesting to see how things shake out with the California teams.
Collin, anything to input on Chezy Champs?
I think for me, I'm excited about two things. The first is obviously, like Mike said, the great teams that are competing there. Outside of Champs, I didn't get a chance to see many West Coast teams this year, being so involved with the Indiana districts. So just excited to watch those teams compete. As far as predictions go, I think 254 and 973 pair up again and avenge the Carson field and repeat as the Chezy champions. I think that would be great to see. So that's my official prediction. The other thing that I guess I'm really excited to watch is the continued evolution of the Game Sense broadcast that they do from the event. IRI Live was so heavily influenced by what they did last year. And I love that they keep raising the bar on what a broadcast of an FRC event can look like. They're all knowledgeable. They're great broadcasters. They know a lot about the game and about the teams. And it's in my opinion, it's things like this that can continue to really push FRC into the mainstream. And so with GameSense and the newly announced release of STEM TV, those things are really excited to me as we continue to try and make FIRST as loud as we can.
Well, we'll be looking for the Chezy champs coming up in just a couple of days. Make sure you check out that GameSense webcast information on ChiefDelphi.com. So we did get some Q&A from our audience members. Thank you so much for those who emailed firstupdatesnow@gmail.com. So we got a couple for both of you, and we're running a little bit long on time, so we'll just take a couple here. Mike, I'm going to start out with you. Question being, what are some of your tips and strategies that you use while being a drive coach on Citrus Circus?
Yeah, it's a great question. Well, one, I'll give a plug to one of the GameSense, talking about GameSense, Behind the Lines episodes that they did back, was it fall of last year? It must have been, where Behind the Lines interviewed myself and Andy Baker about coaching, among other things. And so I actually go through a couple of PowerPoint slides there about coaching, so I'll give a plug for that really fast. But coaching for me, it's all about getting to know other teams, developing positive relationships with them. I really try to make an effort to learn the other Drive team members' names and introduce myself. A lot of times I can't remember, but I do my best to remember or ask them to remind me, and really just keep a good line of communication there. If you're looking for performance as well, I think a big aspect to drive coaching is having a good scouting system behind you. So having up-to-date stats on the robots that you're about to go into a qualification match with is really important to have as a drive coach. And so, and we've gone one step further, and we have a student whose role is team strategist, and I actually have offloaded a lot of the strategy conversations and match planning to that student, who takes the scouting data as well as conversation with teams, develops up a draft, and then I actually work with my strategist student to walk through their draft and their plan for the match, and we revise it from there and implement after that. So I think the big thing is using your scouting data well, being an informed drive coach as far as what your alliance members' capabilities actually are, having good lines of communication with your own drive team, being there for practices, running match simulations. I mean, everybody knows that. That's what you're doing at the home. But I think it's all about good communication and relationships with the other teams when you're there at the field, and then doing your homework and fact-checking stuff before you get to the event, or having live scouting updates at the event so that you have the best information going into those strategy discussions.
Excellent. Collin, a question for you. What kind of input did you have on the game design, and for which years were you part of the game design committee?
Sure. So I started at FIRST in the fall of 2010. So at that point, the 2011 game was, I'll say, probably 75% done. So my role there, I actually built a few mini-bots to test things out. I helped play through the games. The game design committee runs through a lot of very similar things that teams run through, where we have people pretend to be robots and try and play through the games. So that was my role for that first year, and then helped with some of the manual revision. Just reading through things and kind of trying to get the manual ready for delivery. In 2012, 13, and 14, I was I guess a full-blooded member of the game design committee. So I helped pitch games and then refine those games down into what was actually implemented. I was one of the I'll say nicely, jerks on the Q&A who refused to do design reviews and answer hypothetical situations. So I was a full-bore member of the game design committee for those 3 years. And then last year for 2015, I actually led a game review team. So it was a group of outsiders who came in and kind of looked at the manual once it was pretty much ready. They didn't have any input on the actual game design, but tried to look at the manual as teams would their first, that first weekend of build season, to try to get what we called the first team update done actually prior to the season. So that was my role last year. And then I left first shortly after kickoff, so was not involved with game design through the season.
All right, Mike, a question for you. In the Einstein Finals, was there any special strategy for 1678 or its alliance?
Yeah, it's a good question. So we had a couple of really great coaches, or really great strategists on 118 that really did a lot of the spearheading on our strategy. Just to give you a top-level breakdown, because there were specific approaches to each of our matches, or at least the quarters, semis, and finals. So in the quarters, we were totally okay with splitting 50-50 with any alliance that we went with, and then only running one set of can grabbers, splitting the cans, and then having 118 run their three-toed auto. Because because the amount that you took down your opponent's score in the quarterfinals didn't matter as much as you watching your own back and trying to keep your score high enough to make it past the round of 8. So we were specifically requesting that we split 50-50 with alliances. I think both alliances we played were in agreement with that. I mean, there's a lot of weird politics that go on to it. But things started to get interesting in the semifinals because in the semifinals, we looked at the other 3 alliances and we saw that we had a chance to probably be the fastest can grabber, grabbing alliance out of the field of 4. And looking at the math and the damage that we could do to people's averages by limiting them to 3 cans overall in the round of semifinals, we were shooting for all 7 cans in all 3 of those matches. And like I mentioned earlier, we really biffed that first semifinal match with a couple of mishaps, both with stuck cans and such, but we were really going for that score reduction strategy of trying to keep our score marginally high. But again, when we went for four bins or recycling containers, off of the middle step, we had to sacrifice our 3-toed auto, which was a point loss for us for sure. So it was definitely pro cons, but I think you'll notice that the strategy really actually revealed itself as we made it from the 4th spot all the way back up to the to the 2nd spot in the semis, and that's because we were working on this score reduction strategy. And obviously there were a couple other things that went our way, and there's a ton of luck that happens, but I think that was the call that we made in the semifinals. And obviously our robot was built for the finals, our robot was built for can starvation, and so we were gunning for all 4 cans in both of those finals matches. But yeah, that gives you a little flavor for how the strategy was kind of mixed up between rounds. But actually, there was talk of 11-14 threatening to use their 4-can harpoons if we wouldn't agree to a 50-50 split in the semifinals. But we had to take the risk, and we had to say no. We're gonna throw our robot out there, and we're gonna take all 4 cans. Like, bring on the harpoons and try to hit your mark. I mean, that's the kind of stuff that was going on behind the scenes on Einstein this year, and it's because of the weird politics that came around this round robin tournament style play that we were seeing.
That's some really good input. And one, it was a shame we never got to see those. I bet it was Team 900 who had those harpoons that they did.
I'm kind of glad we never saw it on the field.
Yeah, well, yeah, but it would have been
I
really
value my life. Yeah.
Yeah. And Mike, earlier in the pre-show, we were talking a little bit about from the waiver box in our alliance. One of the things, all the teams that were on Einstein, obviously they're the best of the best of the best. But man, were we really scared when you guys jumped into that number 2 spot, moving into the finals, that we knew that from a Cambergling standpoint, it was going to be really, really close. And you guys definitely, your bot was built for that, and you guys were the best in the world at doing that. And I think that's what propelled you guys into being champions. So kudos to you guys for making that just a rock solid strategy that was extremely consistent over and over.
Yeah. I mean, it takes a lot of luck. I mean, it took a ton of things going our way, but I mean, yeah, it is one thing that we built the robot around was the can wars, and it ended up serving us well. But that was a decision that was made day 1 of build season. Doing the math, it was like we got to get these if we want to win World Championship. We got to get the cans, And so we really put everything else on the line to try to get them. So yeah, it's crazy season. Goodness.
Yeah, and I think one of the cool things in the finals, and trying to be as objectively speaking as possible, being that both our teams were in it, was, to me, it was really cool to be able to see was pretty much the best can grabbers in the world versus the best autonomous in a certain aspect. And unfortunately, our autonomous didn't work out during that. But I think it was neat to be able to see those different strategies come together and face off on Einstein. I thought was a really cool thing, regardless if it was my team or anybody else's, to be able to see two different concepts moving forward and who would win out after that.
Yeah, totally. I mean, we were scared because we had to drop our auto to run our can race, and then you guys are there like getting all 4 cans and running your auto. And it's like, shoot, like like that was a man. You talk about not wanting to play us. We definitely didn't want to play you guys either. You guys definitely had it going on. So it was quite the experience.
Awesome. So we'll start off with the last question here. Collin, you had one for Mike as well too, didn't you?
Yeah, Mike, just so 1678 had success in California in 2008 and 2012, and then kind of explode onto the national stage with consecutive Einstein appearances in 2013, 14, and 15, including the World Championship in 2015. Are there things that you can point to that were key drivers in kind of this change?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, this may sound disappointing or like a cop-out, but I gotta say that luck is just a really big factor in all of this. And I have to say that there's teams that are working harder than we are. There's teams that are fundraising harder, that have more team members. I mean, it's just, like we have gotten very lucky and we've been very fortunate the last couple of years. Some other things that I've noticed. One, we have committed to learning from other teams, and specifically being in California, we have the distinct pleasure of competing in the same region as 254, and I think a lot of groups may push against that, but we've really embraced the fact that in the last 2 years we've been to 14 events and we've won 11 of them, and we've lost 3 events in the finals. And at all 3 of the events that we've lost in the finals, it's been to 254. I mean, like they are still the team that we're reaching after and we're pushing for. And that's really, I attribute a lot of where we've come to the model that 254 has set on how to build robots and how to compete well. And it's really given myself and the kids on our team something to aspire to on a year-to-year basis, and also giving a positive outlook and really celebrating success in other individuals and being like, 254 is really good. Yes, they're winning all the time, and that's a great thing, and we can learn a lot from that. And you turn something that a lot of people want to make a negative thing, that a group is winning a ton, and you turn it into a positive, and you say they have something really cool going on. What can we learn from them? So that's 254. Honestly, I attribute a lot of where we're at to that team. I attribute it a lot also to the momentum that's been growing internally on our team. Really a desire to win and a desire to succeed and a desire to learn. And so we've done a ton of internal growth. I mean, 2014, we were building out of a shipping container behind a math classroom, and we had one Bridgeport mill in the back corner of the shipping container, and we would take a 100-foot generator like extension cable and plug it into the classroom to get 3-phase into the shipping container. And so there'd be kids milling in the, I mean, it's California winter, but it's still cold inside a steel shipping container. And so they have their jackets on and they're on the Bridgeport mill, right? And we just moved into our new facility this year, which is our second move in 2 years, and now we have half a practice field, 5 Bridgeport mills, 4 lathes, a CNC router coming in the next couple weeks, and tons of computers, a VEX class. I mean, all that stuff has come out of 2 years, and it's from just continuing to push forward, like wherever you're at, committing to being one step further next year and pushing for that and pushing for that. It's a ton of work, it's a ton of effort. There's a lot of blood, sweat, and tears that go into it, but it's absolutely worth it. And so, myself, the other mentors on the team, the students on a year-to-year basis are just committed to growing. Our outreach was 0 after Championships 2014, and now we've started a total of 26 FLL teams in our city in the last 2 years. And our kids are mentoring almost every one of those teams on a once-a-week or more basis. It's all about continuing to improve wherever you're at right now, just committing to being better next year and not being afraid to ask those teams that are better than you for help, because I can tell you for sure we wouldn't be here if it wasn't for teams like 254, 971, 1323, 973, a lot of our California buddies that have really been behind us, and when we have questions, they've answered them, from all sorts of how do you organize the team, to how do you build a robot, how do you compete. we're coming to these teams all the times with questions, and they've been huge helps in getting us to where we're at right now. So not being afraid to ask questions, always pushing to improve. I call it steal from the best and invent the rest. Those are the kind of mentalities that have come into 1678, along with a lot of luck, because you don't get to Einstein 3 years in a row without a ton of luck. Because there are so many great teams every year. It's impossible to just in your own effort be on top every year. It takes a lot more than that. So.
That reminds me of two things. The first is a presentation that Bill Beatty, the mentor of the legendary Team 71, used to give. This is back when I was in high school and college. He would say the three most important parts of a robot are the drivetrain, and the drivetrain. And he would always say that it took three things to get to Einstein. It took luck, and luck. And then another thing, we actually had the opportunity to talk to a mentor from your Championship Alliance partner, Team 118, Lucian, at IRI Live, and I asked him a very similar question. And he had a very similar answer. He credits a lot of their recent success with coming to IRI and taking that opportunity specifically to talk to the teams that are there to learn how they can improve their team. And so, when you're looking at going to off-season events, they're a little lower stress than, your typical regional or district events, or certainly championship. Take that opportunity to talk to teams that you can look up to and teams you can learn from.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, and one of the things you guys, talk, obviously luck has a huge thing to do with moving in, but it's just having the right team consistency and the right flow and being able to set your mind on, it all comes down, I think, in the beginning of kickoff of where your vision is at. Are you going to do something that just seems cool or looks cool, or are you going to really try to analyze what can we do that's going to get us on Einstein? And I think that's a common thing in what a lot of teams do. And if you haven't seen the presentation, if you're looking for something more recent that Karthik puts on with the strategies that teams have, I think it's a phenomenal thing to check out. And one of the things he talks about, I think, is it's called like the 10,000 hour hump or something like that. That after a certain period of time, either you are on the right track to start getting things, or you need to reevaluate what you're doing as a team. And I like to equate a lot to the World Series of Poker, where you can still have the best teams, or you can be the best poker player, but you don't always get dealt the right hand, and vice versa with things. But over time, the ones that are the most consistent and play the right strategy, I think, come out on top. All right, well, ladies and gentlemen, audience, thank you so much for submitting your questions to our guests, and that's all we're going to have today for First Updates Now. Collin, Fultz, thank you for joining us so much. Can you tell us what you're working on and where people can find you on the web?
Absolutely. So I'm excited to be back with Indiana First, helping to make our teams and events as successful as possible. If you're looking for me, I do have a Chief Delphi account. I don't post very frequently, if at all, but I do have an account, Collin Fultz, where you can send me a PM or an email.
Awesome. And my Corsetto World Champion Team 1678, anything you want to pitch or let the listeners know about?
Yeah, I mean, I just talked about, always being willing to learn. I wanted to pitch the off-season event that 1678 is hosting with 2073 and 3859 for the first time this year. It's Capital City Classic. It's the third year the event's running. First year we're helping run it. And we're doing something a little different with the event. Along with playing Recycle Rush, we're also going to be interspersing our usual fall workshops into the event. And the goal being that every team that's coming to the event, we're sectioning off portions of the event specifically for workshops, where we put a pause on competing either during lunch or after the qualification matches are over, and it's just about workshops. And they're all run by 1678 mentors and students, really designed to take teams to the next level and give them the resources that they need to be more successful in their coming year. And so I want to plug Capital City Classic. It's October 24th and 25th in Davis, California. Any local teams or any teams that want to come in, we have teams coming up from Southern California for the event. It's going to be a ton of fun. It's going to be hopefully a great time for teams to learn, kick off their fall learning, their fall training for their team members. We really want to share everything that we've learned to the community at large, and we really want to develop those inter-team relationships and get our students and mentors talking with your students and mentors. So come to the event, come to the workshops. It's going to be a ton of fun. we're really excited for that event, and we're hoping a lot of teams take advantage of the opportunity to continue to grow and get better and give their students better experiences.
Excellent. Well, thank you, gentlemen, for coming on so much. I also got to give a big thank you today to Nick Olson, working as the camera operator behind the scenes. Thank you, Nick, for taking that stress off of me and doing a great job today. And audience, all we ask is if you like the show, tell a friend or post on your favorite social media and forum promoting the show. This is going to help us grow as a show and get more impact in the FIRST community and making FIRST even more loud. And if you're watching live and you're interested, Collin and I will be discussing in the post-show some new ideas and concepts of the show moving forward, so stick around. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that is going to be it. Thank you so much for tuning in. We hope you enjoyed the show. If you'd like to chime in about our show or any of the discussion topics or give feedback, email us at firstupdatesnow@gmail.com and let us know what you thought. You can also check out where our new posting is going to be on Chief Delphi, and we will be having iTunes coming up in just a little bit if you're interested in downloading it for your commute. Thank you, everybody, once again for joining us, and we'll see you next time on First Updates Now. Good night, everybody. Yay!
All right.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you guys so much. You guys did an amazing job.
That was fun. I hope I didn't ramble too much.
No, I thought you were great.
All right. I tend to be a rambler, so I apologize in advance if it was too rambly.
No, you had we went a little bit over, but you had a lot of really good insight that I think was super important moving in. So thank you for that and all the insight you had, and I hope the audience enjoyed it as much as at least I did. So.
Yeah, it was fun.
Yeah. Collin, great job as well, man. Sounded really good, at least to me, and I was really, really happy with the way everything went. So excellent job to both of you guys.
Thank you.
And Nick, good job. Thank you.
Yeah.
How excited you are.
Do I need to stop the broadcast at this point, or do you want to keep
No,
it?
you can keep it going. I'll splice it up a little bit later on.
All
so
right.
Awesome.
Cool. Hey, Mike, you're welcome to stay on if you want. Otherwise, if you got to head out, we're just going to be talking for about 5-10 minutes or so.
Yeah, I can hang around for a little bit and chat. I'll probably hang over. The kids are packing up for Chezy Champs right now, so I'll probably head over to the shop in a little bit and see how they're doing.
Yeah, I kept forgetting to call it Chezy Champs. I keep thinking cheese. I am from Wisconsin, so I get a little pass. But.
Yeah, absolutely. You get a cheese pass for sure.
Yeah, there's cheese pass.
That would be so funny, Tyler, if you guys started an off-season event in Wisconsin and called it Chezy Champs. Oh, that would be so great. You should do that.
Oh.
I would come. I would come.
Yeah, we'll work
I love
on
Milwaukee,
that.
so I would come.
Well, that's what we'll do for state champs, Tyler. We'll just call it.
Yeah,
state champs.
right. So
There you go.
we've been tossing around a concept of getting some sort of either official or unofficial state championship started in Wisconsin.
Oh,
So-
fun.
That was a
Yeah.
big thing for Indiana in moving to districts because we purposefully moved it to high schools that hadn't hosted off-season events yet. So there was we kind of came in with a planning, or I say we, I wasn't a part of it at this point, but came in with a planning committee and focused on basically evaluating different sites in strategic geographic locations to find where would work for district sites, and I think it was super helpful.
Yeah, and sorry I kind of skipped over that question a little bit. We're just running a little bit long.
Oh, you're fine.
That. Yeah, 'cause I want to get to that at some point, and just the importance of states getting their acts together so they can move forward and continue to grow. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not easy. I mean, it's not easy. It takes a lot of work. I don't know if you guys know Brant Bowen. He was the competition committee chair here in Indiana last year, and just the amount of work he put in to get the districts up and running is awe-inspiring.
Yeah, Brant's a great guy. Definitely
We've
is a dedicated
got a bigger
individual.
team this year to help him out and take some of the load off.
That's good.
All right. Hey, do you mind if we just kind of do just a little brief discussion and kind of talk about on here a little bit what we're looking at doing moving forward? Is that all right with you, Collin?
Yeah.
Okay. So some of the things we've been talking about, and one of the things that we had Collin on here for specifically is a little while ago, Collin reached out to me, and we started talking about how we could start improving the show, as Collin did a fantastic job at IRI Live, and I know had some interest doing podcasting as well, too. So we did a dress rehearsal of this and also doing this live thing to see how we'd work well together. So I know some of the concepts are moving forward. We look at bringing Collin on as co-host of the show as well, too. they kind of be able to bounce back off each other. And maybe not to paraphrase too much, Collin, but do you want to just talk about some of the kind of ideas you had to make this more of a frequent type show and some of the other things we were kind of bouncing off each other?
Yeah, so I think during the season, the frequency kind of speaks for itself. I think where we kind of run into issues would be in the off season in this time. But I think we could do really cool things around kind of the history of First, the history of pieces of First, support pieces, something like Andy Mark. Tell the story of 10 or 11 years ago, Andy Mark getting a start, and now it's this core key supplier. To a whole slew of FRC teams. They used to just build out of Andy's house, and just kind of how they got started, I think, would be a cool story to have Andy tell and to kind of be captured for posterity. And then also to talk to kind of go in depth with teams, the teams that win the World Championship, the teams that win the Chairman's Award. I would love to have the new Chairman's Award team on and just give them an opportunity to tell their story and get people more aware of what they're doing. Woody Flowers Award winners, you could do a whole show with every Woody Flowers Award winner talking about how they kind of what they did that led to them winning the award and their takes on mentoring, and I think things like that would be really cool. And for me, I kind of live on podcasts. I have about a 40-minute drive to work every day. So it's a lot of sports podcasts right now. So having something First related, I think, would fill a need for me and hopefully a need for a lot of other people too.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that come out of that too is as we look at expanding into doing other things and on maybe a more frequent basis as well as looking at our timing for things. I think for a general, during build season like updates thing or during competition season, I think that kind of that hour mark that we're striving for is appropriate. I'd like to maybe look at, as we start doing, if we take your Andy Mark idea, for example, which I definitely think is something we should move forward with, is keeping that around like a half-hour mark and kind of focusing more on that commuter type market versus the live type background where people can just get the RSS feed off of iTunes or SoundCloud or wherever we go with for that, and just be able to just have something to say, hey, I got some time, let's just play something. Because if you keep it too long, you might start to disengage some of your audience. Versus if we are looking at more of an audio-based thing, keeping that shorter time I think might be a little bit more appropriate for that.
Yeah, I think that's a great point and absolutely something we should strive for.
All right. Yeah, and I don't really know much else that we can go over on just kind of maybe reflections on this show in general, kind of today. I'll look at viewership numbers. It looks like we're probably at some point we're about half of what we were last time. And I'm curious to look into why that maybe was. I don't know if it's just the timing, if I had a little bit more drawn as during the summer, or if it was a new show, or if it Karthik or whatever it was. So it'll be interesting to see. I think one of the things, though, is the more we can start repeating this over and over and starting to get this, just into people's hands, I think we're going to start to see returns. But I think it is a long-term investment. I don't think it's something we're going to see immediate gains on.
Right. Yeah. Sorry. Go ahead.
You had about 30 viewers consistently throughout the show.
Yeah.
The one big thing I noticed.
It doesn't always update right on that too, so YouTube will send me metrics afterwards.
Yeah. The one big thing I noticed though is that like compared to a lot of other shows, no one says anything in chat. I don't know if that's your chat client you're going through because I noticed it kicked me out and I think it kicked Collin out too.
Yeah, I saw that.
And
it kept asking me to authenticate that I was there.
Yeah, so we might want to look into a different format for that.
Yeah, that's a good point. And yeah, because last time that we had a much more active chat audience, so I guess I'm not quite sure where that was from. And I think the other thing we need to find ways to get a little bit better advertising mediums as well too, other than just cheap Delphi. And so there's some other channels we can potentially go through for that as well.
Yeah, well, and I just think about it like I listen to a football podcast, and I know that on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays around noon they're going to release something, and so I think once we kind of get to where we're once we're robust with the getting things to iTunes, I think just being consistent like that so that people know when to expect it, I think it would be a big thing.
Yeah, I agree, and just having the whole automatically downloading potentially too. Like for me, I use like Pocket Cast for my app, and the podcast that I listen to, they just come to my phone. I just know they're there. So having that media where I don't have to do anything to get it in my hands, I think will help out with that too. So, hey, Mike, any feedback from you at all, man, that can help us improve?
Yeah, I mean, I thought the show went really well. I think it's doing a good job working with the material that we have, being a summer season, or I guess going into the fall. It's still pretty slow for the most part. I mean, I like the idea of it being current events related. At the same time, like the fact that it's, I think Collin's ideas are really good, because if it's more current events related and less topical, I feel like it's going to seem less worth the time of a lot of people who are tuning into this that aren't the Chief Delphi crowd. I mean, the Chief Delphi crowd loves to hear about, Chezy champs and who's playing and who do you think is going to win and are they going to say my team number or not? That's what the Chief Delphi crowd loves to do, right? But if you're really looking at breaking out of that, the 75% of teams, don't give a rip who the poofs are or who simbots are. You know what I mean? Like, they just don't. They don't care. But they know that they have 8 kids on their team and one kid who says he knows how to program, but they're going to see if this autonomous thing works. I mean, that's where majority of teams are at, and so, if we're looking at expanding viewership outside of Chief Delphi, what does that look like? For me, it would look like getting less excited about some of this hype stuff that we like to get excited about, and more excited about the things that we know are going to connect with a lot of teams, and that a lot of teams are just legitimately going to care about. I don't know what that looks like. The hard part is, too, the people that don't care about all that stuff, do they care enough to listen to a podcast about something that they're only putting in, 15, 20 hours a week of work into max? I mean, that's the balance thing, right? Where does the audience end? Because people just, at that point, on that end of the FRC team spectrum, they're not going to listen to anything or read anything because it's just not worth their time. I don't know. I mean, there's obviously trade-offs there, but maybe there is a way to go a little bit more in that direction to make it a little bit more appealing and worth the time of someone who's less in the Chief Delphi hype sphere. Yeah, I don't know. That's my feedback on it. I think it's a great show, and I think it was a lot of fun, and I definitely think it fills a great gap in the FRC media community. If FRC Top 25 is on one end of the hype spectrum, you're on the other end, and Game Sense is in the middle, but I still think you could keep going in the other direction a little bit more, away from Game Sense and FRC Top 25, and make it even more applicable to a larger audience base. That's just my opinion. I mean, the people that start FRC Top 25 and the people that start Game Sense, and then the people here, we've been doing it for so long, and we love this hype stuff, and we love to talk about the teams and how finals went. We just love it, right? I mean, but that's just not where a majority of people are at, and a majority of people in first are at. So I think it's taking some sensitivity to that, and maybe trying to take 2 steps back and talk to at your next regional event, talking to people and other teams, and be like, if I had a podcast that talked about first stuff, rookie team 6,000 and whatever, would you listen to it? And they're like, well, what are you going to talk about? It's like, well, I'm going to talk about the Chezy Poops. And they're like, who? You know what I mean? That's there's your viewer base right there. But if you are able to sell 5 rookie teams to listen to your podcast at your next regional event, I think you're on the right track to increase your viewer base. Just an idea. But that's where I see a lot of the talk shows right now are based around all the hype. If you really want it to be something that's going to reach a wider audience, you got to break outside of that, and it's gonna take some lenses of seeing what those people are going to want and what those people think is worth their time. So
yeah, that's a great point, Mike, and I appreciate that. And I think what you kind of bring out is, I mean, we're trying to just do a new flavor each time. So last time I focused on more variety, this time we focus more on news discussion. And yeah, you bring up a really good point that and I know I've been on Mike and Justin's show a couple of times, and from talking to them, that their viewership, I mean, the second a team gets listed off their top 25, their viewership just drops little by little by little, because the team's like, oh, I heard my team, okay, I'm gone, sort of thing. And and that's a fundamental issue that they've had. And I know from our end, yeah, I agree. We have to find a way to penetrate that gap that is just there, where people have no clue what's going on in the general FRC community. And yeah, how do you do that? And I think it's going to be just a lot of experimentation on our end to get to that point. And like I said, it's going to be a long-term investment moving forward.
So, Mike, do you see that? Listening to what you're saying, I'm kind of seeing it. I'm thinking about it more as like Olympics coverage, right? Like, you don't watch the Olympics so that you can learn the technical ins and outs of gymnastics or whatever. You watch it and they give you the human interest stories and things like that. Is that? It kind of sounds like that's where you think would be an interesting direction to go. Does that?
Yeah.
Is that right?
I mean, maybe. I mean, all I'm saying is I'm not sure a lot of the stuff that this show maybe. I mean, and I think this show, honestly, I think this show does a great job covering a lot of different topics. And in Game Sense has too. FRC Top 25 is a little bit more on the hype train, but I'm thinking from the perspective of someone that doesn't know or really care about who the powerhouse teams are any given year, or how many points they can score in auto. Their interests are entirely elsewhere. Like, if and that is, I mean, that's where a majority of teams are at. Like, how do you capture that audience? Is capturing that audience, does that look like getting them excited about the hype train teams? Maybe. I mean, there are kids that get excited about that, but for a lot of teacher mentors, for a lot of other mentors, for a lot of kids, maybe they just don't care about that stuff. And if so, what do they care about? And what's going to grip them? Maybe more personal interest stories. Maybe, I don't have any answers, really.
If we were like, what do you talk about? Well, during the season, we talk about, the team updates and how that could impact what different teams, what teams in general are doing, not like, this impact's going to have a huge, or this team update's going to have a huge impact on what 11-14 is going to do.
Yeah.
Right. Kind of those things. Like, we read the team update so you don't have to, kind of thing.
Yeah, and I mean, talk about the implications. Maybe, well, let me give you a great example. I think one online media besides the first kickoff that has really penetrated into the lower, maybe the 99%. I don't want to say it that way because it's not.
Well, maybe something that's disenfranchised a little bit. Right?
Something that's penetrated into that market is Robot in 3 days.
Yeah.
I mean, we can all admit that. Like, there's something about what Robot in 3 days has offered the last couple of years that there are rookie teams that don't go on Chief Delphi, or if there's maybe one person that has perused it once, right? And there's there's tons of teams that use Robot in 3 days as a resource that couldn't give a rip about FRC Top 25 or Game Sense, right? Mm-hmm. And think about what Robot in 3 days is offering teams. And maybe that'd be a good thing to study and go off of, because I mean, you see the effects of Robot in 3 days everywhere on all sorts of teams that you wouldn't expect to, right? And it's because these teams are taking advantage of a resource that they actually legitimately care about, which is how the hell do I build a robot, right? Like, what the heck do I do, right? And Robot in 3 days is a great answer for those teams, and I think it's why they've captured such a viewership.
Yeah, they've said, that's who we're focusing on. You know. The poofs aren't watching Robot in 3 days to figure out what they're going to do.
I watch Robot in 3 days.
Yeah. Well, that's an interesting point, though, is that we might have to look at one market versus the other, and if we go a certain route, we might now potentially, and it might be okay, we might lose, that for lack of a better term, that 1% of teams that are on top. They might not, care too much about what RA3D, or if we find what they do and engage those other teams that are out there, we might also lose a certain market as well too, and that might be okay. It just is what direction we want to move forward with.
Yeah, I think ultimately it's up to you guys. I just see it from the perspective of there's so many teams out there that they don't care about a lot of the stuff that Chief Delphi cares about, but they care about what Robot. I mean, I literally just thought of this now, but they do care about what Robot in 3 days is doing. That is a high interest to a lot of people. They're very.
No, that's a great point, because I wouldn't have thought of that.
Yeah. Something to chew on, I guess. I have no idea what that would look like in a podcast form or a talk show form at all, but I think Collin had some good ideas with going through team updates and breaking those down for teams. It could go a whole you got to think a lot of these teams too, from what I've experienced, they're very, they're like almost any team. They don't meet hardly at all in the fall, but they start meeting at kickoff, right? And so you can't do informational sessions in the fall for teams that don't meet in the fall and don't care about it in the fall, right? Like you got to start coaching teams at kickoff and giving them content that's pertinent to where they're at through build season, and that's really what Robot 3 Days does. Here's how you build a robot, and I'm telling you the first 3 days of build season because that's the only time you're actually going to pay attention to this and learn something, right? And that's where a lot of teams are at, and so, maybe it involves structuring the podcast to meet those teams where they're at the season. And I think it'd be a good resource for everybody. I mean, there's not a lot of teams that don't use Robot 3 Days. I mean, there's some people that have said, I will not use Robot 3 Days. It is bad for my kids, right? I'm like, come on. You can get over yourself. Robot 3 Days is awesome. And maybe looking at providing resources in a similar vein that Robot 3 Days does would be a way to capture a really large audience. And a side note, too, sorry to keep circling around, but I think the reason why we don't see a lot of that is because a lot of people want to put their efforts towards building their own robots in the 6 weeks they have during build season, and they're like, I don't want to mentor a bunch of anonymous people online for 6 weeks, right? But that's really what it would look like. It'd look like mentoring 500, 1,000 different FRC teams via an online media source that they can trust and go to. I mean, there's nothing really like that. Robot in 3 Days has really been the closest thing, and then Chief Delphi posts. The people that could do it don't really want to put the time into it because they want to mentor their own teams, like myself. So maybe there's a niche there. I don't know. Just throwing out ideas.
Well, I appreciate that, Mike. And the more feedback and more ideas we can get, the more we can try to shape the show the best we can moving forward. So thank you for that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and thanks overall for coming on. And not to wrap this up, but we're getting a little bit late. But thank you so much for everybody for coming on. Everything you guys have done, definitely appreciate it. And love to have you on another time as well.
Super fun. I'd love to be back on at some point. It was a blast. Very fun.
Cool. And I hope I get to meet you in person sometime. I guess it'll have to be this year in St. Louis, right?
Yeah, this year a bus, man.
I got to go back to St. Louis then.
Oh, yeah. Man. Okay. All right. Yeah. All right, guys. I'm going to make sure the kids have packed everything for the event tomorrow.
All right. Hey, good luck, man. Have a great night.
All right. Thanks, guys. Talk to you later.
See ya.
See ya.
Bye.
All right, Nick, you can go offline.